News poll finds that Donald Trump is shaving Hillary Clinton's lead. In a four-way race, Hillary Clinton maintains a narrow two-point advantage over the Republican nominee, which falls within the margin of error. The dead heat calls into question critics who say that Donald Trump has no chance of reclaiming the lead. Here to break it all down is University of Virginia Center for Politics Director Larry Sabato. Larry, good to see you here this morning. All right, so
thank you.
Speak to Trump supporters who may be listening right now. Is this good news that we're revealing in this latest poll? Is he trending higher?
Not particularly, and you've got to, first of all, you're cherry picking. You can't do that with polls. You have to look at a polling average. She's up about 5 when you put all the polls together. Number two, you're presenting the four-way matchup. That's legitimate, but the much more legitimate matchup is head-to-head.
Okay, where he's at about 8 point, still about an 8-point lead. She's at an 8-point lead there.
48 to 42. It's a 6-point lead for Hillary Clinton, 48 to 42 in the one-on-one matchup.
Right.
The reason that's more representative is because the third-party candidates tend to fade as November approaches.
Okay, so we're showing the latest Fox News polling with the 6-point lead that you're acknowledging, Clinton 48, Trump 42. It also finds that Trump has an advantage with independent voters, which has been key in this race, Larry. Could that change the race in some swing states when you look at how independent voters are trending right now? 38% Donald Trump, 26% Hillary Clinton.
Well, possibly. It depends on how you're defining independence. Real independents are actually single-digit percentage of the electorate. There are not very many of them. Almost everybody leans to a party one way or the other.
Larry, it's Dagan McDowell, and hello to the fine people of Charlottesville, Virginia.
Thank you.
In terms of these polls, what's the most troubling for Donald Trump? Just looking in this Fox News poll, he still only has 74% of Republican voters. Is that the most worrisome thing that you could look at before we move on to the swing states? 81% of Democrats back Hillary Clinton.
Yes, I think, frankly, that's a little low on both sides. Again, if you use polling averages, Clinton is close to 90% support among Democrats, whereas Donald Trump is a little over 80% with Republicans. He needs to get that number up. Who's he missing? We already know. He's missing the moderate conservatives. He's missing the independents who lean Republican. They still believe he's unqualified to be president and does not have the temperament to be president. That is Donald Trump's challenge. And I don't think yesterday proved anything to them. He's going to have to try and do that in the debates.
Oh, speaking of the debates,
I can't wait.
Kat can't wait for that. But Larry, let's talk right now about your electoral vote predictions. You predict that the swing states of Florida, Iowa, Pennsylvania, even Wisconsin could lead Democrat. Do you think independent voters, as we had just looked at the polling there, could change that?
Well, I'll tell you where Clinton is weakest on that map, even though she has those states leaning to her. She's weakest in Iowa, Nevada, and Florida. And I suppose you could throw Ohio in, though I haven't seen much to make me question that it's leaning to Clinton. But those states are obviously critical states. And if we see states switch, I think those would be the first to switch.
Nevada, how is she weak in that state, Larry, particularly with the large Latino voting population there?
Well, you have to look at the other side of the equation, not just Latinos, but also white registered voters there. Nevada has been through perhaps the worst recession of the 50 states, or certainly one of the few that are in that category. And because of that, because it's taken so long for Nevada to recover, there's a lot more feeling for change. There's a lot more desire for change. So I think that's really at the heart of it. And also, you have to look at the population of college-educated voters, and it's relatively low there versus some other states.
But you know what could change everything, Kat, is the debate.
I know.
I know you can't wait to talk about that.
I really can't
wait.
The first debate. Hillary, I mean, she's polls can say one thing, but the head-to-head, she can talk about him and say, oh, he's mean in her own speeches that have been written and prepared by somebody else. But when they're face-to-face and she's forced to handle Donald Trump, never knowing what he's going to say or do, I'm really going to be interested to see how that affects things.
And Larry, how have the debates affected the outcome in November? Is there one political season or one election year that it changed everything?
Well, I'd cite 1960 when they started between Kennedy and Nixon. Nixon probably would have been president in 1960 without the 4 televised debates. You can argue that a debate cost Gerald Ford a 4-year term in 1976 when he made a gaffe, a goof, during one of the debates and then kind of refused to correct it for about 10 days, which is never a wise thing. But I got to tell you, recently, because we're more used to debates and the candidates are trained so much more thoroughly for the debates, you don't see that kind of thing very often. We live in a very polarized era, and so Democrats tune in to cheer for their team, and Republicans tune in to cheer for their team, and you actually have just a handful of truly undecided voters watching a debate.
All right, so Larry, let's talk the timing now because we're just over 2 months away from Election Day. Is there time for any major turnaround or time for Hillary Clinton to lose a lot of ground? I don't know. I mean, Reince Priebus had said that Labor Day was going to be the day where Donald Trump would then be leading in the polls. I mean, that's Monday. It's not exactly happening right now. Do they still have time?
Well, they do if certain things happen, external things. You know, at this time in 2008, and you all on the Business Channel would know this better than anyone, at this time in 2008 when Obama and McCain were opposing one another, nobody knew what was going to happen at the end of September when the economy nearly collapsed. So, you know, there are surprises that do happen and that transform elections. That's why we watch every day. Every day? How about every hour? Every minute? I can't wait till this is over. I want to resume a life.
I still think that what lost it for John McCain, it wasn't Sarah Palin, it wasn't the collapse of Lehman Brothers. It was when he said, I'm suspending my presidential campaign. I'm going back to Washington, D.C. to fix it. And then he ended up sitting in a corner, and it was Hank Paulson and Nancy Pelosi side by side rubbing elbows, you know, proclaiming that they had saved the U.S. economy.
Yeah, he was kind of not a participant. He was a spectator rather than somebody in the center of the action. I'm not sure why they did it that way. He would have been better off actually denouncing the incumbent Republican administration and saying he would do things completely differently.
And as far as this polling, it's important to point that on the issues, Trump more voters trust Clinton than Trump on terrorism. She's still got a 3-point lead there. And the two candidates are tied on their handling of the economy.
Which is a big switch.
Which is a big switch. Larry, and you mentioned 2008 and the unpredictable nature of that election and what was happening in those days and months that led up to that. We were just looking at that September to October period for the U.S. stock market. Typically, that is not a good time for the stock market, but the stock market got hit 25% in the September-October leading up to the 2008 election day. Unbelievable to look back at that time and think of that. Larry Sabato, thanks for joining us this morning.
It was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you.